I am here to speak about the theological foundations of jihad. And this is, of course, a very important point to start with because it's one of the most controverted. One of the things that you will very frequently hear the President of the United States say is that the Islamic State, or ISIS, a group that self-consciously refers to itself as Islamic and tries to make recruits among Muslims on the basis of its Islamic authenticity, actually has nothing to do with Islam. And it's not just Obama who says this, but the Secretary of State, the Vice President, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, the Prime Minister of France, pretty much every authority in the Western world agrees that what we see in jihad terror groups has nothing actually to do with the religion of Islam.
What happened today was despicable. It was hateful. It was wrong. It was carried out by an individual, not a faith, not a culture, not an ethnicity, not a faith, not a faith.
This creates a paradox since there are now 30,000 people who have gone from all over the world to join the Islamic State. And they're all Muslims. And they are going there on the basis of their acceptance of the Islamic State's appeal. Their acceptance of the claim that it is not only Islamic, but is quintessentially Islamic, and the only authentic elaboration of Islam. So, who are we to believe? Are we to believe the Western leaders and the intelligentsia that these terror groups actually have nothing to do with the actual religion? Or are we to believe the terror groups themselves who say that they have everything to do with the actual religion? Now, this issue is extraordinarily clouded over, fogged over, and complicated for numerous reasons. But one of the main ones is that whenever Muslim authorities today, and even terrorist leaders, are asked why they are fighting, they always list a long list of grievances. Grievances. Grievances.
You know, if you want to do these de-radicalization programs, how does that work in a colonial country and within a white supremacist framework effectively when we're not talking about an illegal war in Iraq that was based on lies, where nobody has been held accountable who was telling those lies, where we've actually got George Bush given a major platform this weekend rather than any kind of accountability, facing any court for, you know, even basic things like claiming that Al-Qaeda was in Iraq and using that as a pretext for an illegal invasion. All of those things are the context around which this happens. And when you don't have responses, when countries are not taking ownership for the profiteering of sale of arms and all the other things that are happening in this context, how do you de-radicalize? And you can still, but we need to make sure that we're putting that context in place.
Grievances. So, for example, Osama bin Laden wrote about 9/11 and why the Muslims took down the Twin Towers and attacked the Pentagon on 9/11. And he said, well, it's because you had troops in Saudi Arabia, the sacred site of the two holy places of Mecca and Medina, and you support Israel, and you've done all these other atrocities. And so all these people think, Western leaders think, that if we throw Israel under the bus, if we get out of their lands and so on, that the jihad will go away. But they have failed to take into account the fundamental theological reasoning behind this. And a further complication comes from the fact that in Islamic theology, only the caliph, the successor of Muhammad as the leader of all the Muslims, is authorized to wage what is known as offensive jihad. And he actually has the responsibility to declare jihad against non-Muslim states on regular occasions. But unless you believe the Islamic State's claims, ISIS's claims, there's been no caliph since 1924, when the secular Turkish government abolished the caliphate. So what you have in the world now is all defensive jihad, because nobody needs to declare defensive jihad. All you have to do is see that a Muslim land is attacked, and then you have the responsibility to fight. But that means that all the jihads in the world today have to be justified as defensive, hence the list of grievances. But what if all those grievances were swept away? What if Israel were to disappear and the United States were to withdraw entirely from the Islamic world? Would the jihad go away? It would not. And it would not because of, if you think about that verse again, chapter 9, verse 29, fight against those who do not obey Allah and His Messenger, and do not forbid what He has forbidden, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Now think about that for a second. It doesn't say, even if they're of the people of the book whose foreign policy you deplore, or even if they are of the people of the book who have offended you by founding a new nation on land that you believe to be yours. Or even if they are of the people of the book whose immorality disgusts you and makes you believe that they are the spawn of Satan themselves. It's just, even if they're of the people of the book, full stop. Even if the Christians and the Jews are polite, virtuous, just, magnanimous, and kind to the Muslims, they still have this imperative to fight against them and subjugate them. And this has been so throughout the history of Islam. But because the Muslims are the executors of God's wrath in this world, they have the responsibility, not just they're exhorted to or encouraged to, but they have the responsibility before Allah to be the executors of His wrath and to punish the Christians, so to allow Allah to punish the Christians through them. This is the foundation of modern day jihad. It is ultimately and fundamentally a theological war.